Can we, first of all, sort of talk about Close to You? This is the key one that's brought you here this year and a big film for you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here with you all. And thrilled to be here with, Close to You, which is directed by the incredible Dominic Savage. Whose work I adore. The first thing of Dominic's I saw was the episode he did with Samantha Morton for the show I Am, which just completely blew me away. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop feeling it. And thankfully, Dominic and I really connected and sort of started building the story of Close to You together, which is essentially about a guy named Sam who's trans, and he's going home for his father's birthday. And on the way home on the train, he sees someone from his past who he loved very much. And the story unfolds. Yes.
And we have a short spoiler-free clip. So I suppose if we do the first clip and then we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Catherine?
Hello.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It's so nice to see you.
How long has it been since high school? Like
almost 20 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We had the first screening yesterday night, so we've got another one following this. But you worked with Hilary before, right? So you
Yes.
go quite way back together.
Yeah, Hilary and I met shooting a film called The East almost 13 years ago, and stayed friends and only grew closer and closer over the years, and been desperate to work with each other again. We didn't have much to do together in the East, and this seemed like such a great opportunity. So thankfully she said yes, and Hilary is just astounding, like one of the most deeply present, generous, open actors I've worked with. So it was an absolute joy to get to do it with her.
And you have a lot of freedom within the way that Dominic works, is to so much improvisation, and a lot of that is then that collaborative nature is not the case on most film sets, that you have that much input.
Yeah, that and lots of other things are different than the way Dominic makes things, which is you feel when you watch it. You feel the intimacy. You feel the rawness. It stays with you. But yeah, it's not typical that you shoot something that's one lens handheld the whole film, all natural light, and you're improvising. So you find yourself doing a 20-minute take, a 30-minute take. I think our longest was 53 minutes. I mean, that doesn't happen. And so what is so unparalleled and so truly joyful about making something this way is typically, as an actor, that whatever that is, that feeling that makes you truly, like, it's odd because you feel so deeply present and you're in another reality, so it's a bit of a paradox. But to get to have that exhilarating feeling, and it to not be after 2 minutes cut, and now we're gonna move the camera and you go sit for half an hour and then come back, which has its own fun and challenges. But this was like that exhilarating feeling you get as an actor but it keeps going and going and going. And I'll speak for myself, and I know a lot of the actors that have worked with Dominic after they do one, they're just like, can we please do another, you know? And of course there's days where you're taught, you know, you just literally, you don't stop because there's no setup. And it's also just a massive testament to the crew. When you think of Catherine Lutz, our incredible cinematographer, holding a fucking camera that long, the boom operator, the focus puller, it really is a dance. I mean, one of my memories of it is Dominic, the focus puller, just, you know, us all like kind of moving together. And I'm so used to like land your mark, play to the camera. And it was a shift to go, oh, I actually don't have to think about the camera like I usually have to. So it was, so I'm going on and on about it. You can tell I sincerely enjoyed the experience.
But so freeing, and do you think it'll be hard to go back to that more rigid way of working where this is the line and no deviations and that kind of thing?
I don't know if, like I said, I guess they both have their own unique challenges. And there is something that's also cool about like stepping off for 45 minutes and going back and having to get back to that same place, you know? But I think, yes, this is arguably the most joy I've ever felt acting.
And it was the first film that you'd had proper intimacy coordinators on.
Yeah.
Ube's done some fantastic programming in the festival this year that's all about that. But it's quite shocking that this was the first time you ever had it.
Yes. And that was my sensation when it was brought up was, oh, wow, I've never, ever had this before. And I've been working since I was 10 years old and doing very intense, you know, sex scenes since, you know, when I was like 16. And I think back to, oh my goodness, how was there not someone there? Because in that specific case, I was not protected at all. It was an awful experience, and with a much older man. So, and it doesn't matter, age, whatever, right? It's just like people should be taken care of. And I think, you know, on sets, there's of course very distinct power dynamics. And potentially even say there's not an intimacy coordinator and someone doesn't have that time. Someone might be going, oh no, it's fine, I get it, we're in a rush. And it's just like, it's not fine.
Yeah.
You know, and these are really vulnerable moments. And, you know, whether someone's been through certain things in their life or not, but it's just like, I think it's fantastic. Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
And have you been approached to sort of contribute expertise to it from a trans perspective? Because it's quite a burgeoning field and everyone's, I suppose, all sets are hopefully racing to get intimacy coordinators involved.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you asked that because, I mean, the intimacy coordinator that Hillary and I worked with on this was very, like, asking me very specific questions in relation to my transness, and in a very respectful way is what I mean. Like, it was a part of the conversation and the thought process. I don't know if that's the norm right now, or but that's great that you bring that up because that's a good thing for me to know more about in the industry.
I wanted to talk about Backspot as well, which is the other film which has brought you here in a production capacity. I met the people from that in the bar last night. They're great. It's a brilliant film. It's screening tomorrow and Monday. So could you give us a bit of a flavour of this film, also without spoilers, and how you came to be involved in producing it?
Absolutely. Yeah, Backspots. Yeah, you got to go see it. It's a fantastic film. It's a queer cheerleading drama. D.W. Watterson's first feature film, and they did an incredible job. It stars Devery Jacobs, who is just delivers a knockout performance as per usual, and Evan Rachel Wood is in it as well. And I get how it began was my company, Page Boy Productions, met with Devery and talked about her ideas and sent the script to Backspot, and
And then you just said
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
You're supported with a
So-
couple of other production companies, Canadian
Absolutely.
production companies that sort of
Yes,
collaborate.
lots and
on
lots of
together.
people involved, yeah.
So we have a little teaser clip from Backspot also. Can you please roll that, the second one? Thanks.
Let's go. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 5, 7, dip. 1, 3, 5, 7, clean. 1. Great. 1, 3, 5, 7, 1.
How's it going?
Good.
Two more seconds.
Yeah.
1, 3, 5, 7.
Okay.
1, 3,
You ready?
5, 7.
Just a sec.
4, 5, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 2, 3.
I just imagine you're completely inundated with people's projects and ideas, from like a nub of an idea to fully realized things. Like, yeah, how you go about selecting out all this emerging talent that must be approaching you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're looking for things that feel compelling, you know, exciting and entertaining, and ultimately also feel socially responsible in terms of what we're putting out into the world. Wanting things that feel fresh and innovative and from voices we're not used to hearing from. And I mean, really, it's, I think, what comes and excites us. And we're very genre agnostic, you know, have all kinds of different projects in development. And I've been really fortunate to be moving forward with multiple ones. So that's kind of.
Yeah, because we had My Days of Mercy. I think it was the opener or closer of the festival in 2017, I think. And you were a co-producer of that as well. Was that the beginning of your production side of your career?
The beginning of producing, no, I guess a little earlier than that. A film I did called Into the Forest, a Canadian film with Evan Rachel Wood, who's also amazing in Backspot.
Yeah,
so
she was
good.
Terrifying, actually,
So
in
good.
some of the scenes.
Yeah.
Scary coach.
Yeah, she has such range. But yes, it's, so I guess, it started a little bit before.
And you've done quite a bit of directing, but
Just a little bit, yeah.
in directorial, mainly.
Yeah, I directed a documentary, with my dear friend Ian Daniel.
Yeah, because I think we have an image of this, which is for Something in the Water, which was 2019. And this is about the disproportionate effect of climate change on First Nations people. Can you tell us a bit more about this? Because more people need to see this film.
Well, it's about environmental racism, specifically, focus, obviously it's a global issue, but specifically focused on the province of Nova Scotia, where I'm from. And, this didn't start out, just to be clear, me being like, this is my story to tell. It started by learning more about these issues in Nova Scotia, where I grew up, and felt just shocked and shameful that I didn't know about them, which has obviously been on purpose, of course. And so I was hoping to find something to educate myself more. And lo and behold, this book had just come out called There's Something in the Water by a professor at Dalhousie named Ingrid Waldron, literally about environmental racism in Nova Scotia and the disproportionate placement of polluting industry or dumps and landfills next to predominantly Black or Indigenous communities. And I then reached out to Ingrid and we connected, and then I was talking to this is about a specific story. We covered 3 different issues in the province. These are the grassroots grandmothers, water protectors, land protectors. I ended up connecting with them on the phone and just sort of maybe we could pop up with cameras and just film little things, put them online. Because they've been talking about this forever, right? And when we went up, covered these sort of 3 issues, thinking, again, we were just making little clips. But then we were looking at the footage and thought, actually, I think this is a feature, and we just like hit the ground running, doing everything we could to get it out as soon as possible, because a lot of these issues are obviously super timely. So yeah, there's something in the water.
Grew and grew, and it had quite a lot of screenings and has made an impact.
Yeah, which is cool, and also it sucks. Like what? Like they've really like it.
Yeah.
That's not cool. That like a white dude that grew up in Nova Scotia, and like that part of it sucks and makes it just so it's hard to be like, it's like they've been saying all this and doing all this long before I even knew about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
With the whole sort of thing about the streaming issue, like, how do you feel like the industry could be kind of set up different? I mean, it's an enormous question, but I have ideas about how it could be set up differently in a utopian way. Like, what would be a better way? Yeah.
I feel like there's so many people who are way more informed and smarter than me on this topic who would probably have better things to say. Gosh, I don't know. Sometimes it does feel overwhelming because it is. It's like it's not a cute system. It's not, and we all know who the people are who are making the majority of the decisions of what narratives to tell, how to tell them, what stories to share. And even when you're like, with Pageboy Productions and we're trying to do that, it's hard to not feel overwhelmed by sort of state of, the world and the industry itself. Let's see. And, I just hope, obviously, people get a fair shot who haven't gotten those opportunities before, who haven't gotten the space to share their work, or don't have the means like other people have to even have the time away from potentially working multiple jobs to write their thing. Like, so how do we create an industry that can be more inclusive to people and not just predominantly people already from privilege entering it?
Yeah, to have more people behind the scenes and like you who are getting to pick projects that give other people a leg up in the industry is so valuable.
Exactly, and that's what we hope to do with Pageboy. And I know even right when we started, how long has it been? It's been a couple of years now. Matt and Tuck were just meeting everybody, from people just beginning their writing journey to more established writers, but essentially just, filmmakers, writers, developers at all different points in times in their career, and specifically in individuals who represent communities that have been underrepresented. So that's most certainly the goal, and I hope we can continue to do it.
And we here at the festival, very astute audiences, we know that there's a lot of fantastic transmasculine talent out there, but there's still quite a sort of invisibility on transmasculinity on screen that kind of seems to break through. This year, we have Jules Roscombe's Desire Lines is screening tonight with two fantastic transmasculine actors in it. And, but it's just that next step getting, breaking through to wider theatrical release and things.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, and to have, more and more trans masculine representation, absolutely.
Yeah, because I think, there's definitely, I feel like we're on a kind of second tipping point, I hope, in terms of that, in opening the door a bit wider and more authenticity of the people that made the project. And I think that comes from audiences saying enough is enough, to the people that hold that door closed, that audience-driven power. So thank you, audiences.
Also, sometimes too, I was thinking about this the other day because it's often called like niche. Queer things niche. 30% of young people identify as LGBTQ+. So I'm like, I'm sorry, this is not niche. And thank you. And it's not like, obviously we're making films for everybody to watch, but it's just, that really, really irks me. I'm like, you tell really specific stories about like cis het people. I'm not calling that odd plot niche. you know?
Yeah. There's one of my favorite stats about this was there was a Tom of Finland exhibition at the ICA a few years ago, and they did lots of research wondering whether or not it would be too niche that only gay men would come. And in their audience feedback things, 66% of women, heterosexual women, were their audience. So they were like, okay.
I'm not surprised. Those are some nice drawings. I've actually got one right.
But yeah, I mean, in the museum world that I work in, it's the same thing. Like we're really having much more LGBTQ inclusivity in things, and finding, people are often worried that also there'll be a backlash. There'll be we'll have all kinds of terrible things that we'll have to deal with, and those things
more press.
Yeah, more press, and a lot of the time those things, I'm glad to say, haven't really materialized. It's a lot of hot air about things, which I'm glad to say. But we're going to move on to talking about your world in working in television. And you were really looking for a good television role that you could connect with the character over a longer period of time than you ever get to do in film. And before we talk about the big one that we're going to have a clip about, I wanted to ask you about Tales of the City, what it was like stepping into Armistead Maupin's universe.
Well, I mean, it was an honor, and I was working with, like Laura Linney, who's one of my heroes, and so many incredible queer and trans people, and the crew itself, I mean, that was most certainly a project where, like, if you were cishet, you were kind of the, you were the
one out.
Yeah, that one out. So yeah, it was an honor to be a part of it, and to be in that atmosphere, and to get to make something in a space like that. I'd never been amongst a crew like that before. So yeah.
And to join this kind of so well beloved world. And on the set of this, you met Thomas Page McBee, that I wanted to ask you about, who had a great influence on you at that time in your life, that moment.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas has had a big impact on me in my life. If you're not familiar with Thomas's work, he's written 2 incredible books. He's working on a 3rd right now. One is called Amateur. The other's Man Alive. And Amateur, so beautiful, and really moved me, helped me a lot. I think Thomas is very much was a possibility model for me. Or I'd find when I would read I actually didn't, this wouldn't have been Thomas's book at the time, but different periods when I'd read trans memoirs, I could feel myself going, like, oh my God. And then I would literally just wipe it out of my brain. So it was a process, obviously, but yeah, Thomas was someone along the way who had such a huge impact on me, and is such a kind friend, and has really been there for me.
I had a similar experience. I think I just really couldn't ignore my transness anymore in this room. 12, 13 years ago, I was watching a film, quite a low-fi documentary by Buck Angel. It's called Sexing the Trans Man. I don't know if anyone was here. It was like 13 years ago or something, I suppose. And yeah, every single person that spoke in that just went right through me. And I thought at that moment, right, I can't, ignore this anymore. So, the power of cinema and, of your book and things that we're going to talk about shortly, these are the things, to resonate with people, that cinema just kind of has that magic. We're going to talk about Umbrella Academy.
Okay.
But just before we show a little clip for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's a very difficult thing to summarize because it's so complex and really trippy.
Yeah, I haven't had to do it in a while, like the quick summary either. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to sort of, summarize it, for this is a real key role for you.
Yeah, I'll summarize the show.
Yeah.
So one day, all around the world, multiple women all of a sudden are pregnant and deliver babies. And then an eccentric billionaire, sociopath, very fictional, goes and purchases 7 of them. And it turns out they all, except, spoiler alert, maybe for one, have some kind of a power. And then the show picks up when they're now in their 30s and all dealing with their various sort of traumas from their childhood because their father essentially forced them to be a superhero team, putting them in very dangerous situations, selling comics, merchandise, So really it is about this group of siblings that's ultimately contending with trauma. But it's fun and action-packed, and we're done now. The final season comes out soonish, so yeah.
Yeah, the 4th and final season comes out in August.
In August.
Yeah, sadness of all fans everywhere, but you leave them wanting more. That's the thing, isn't it? We have got a little clip from Umbrella Academy, so can we roll that one, please? I love the classic barbershop scene as well, because it's such a rite of passage for so many of us. I'm still trying to get my hair as good as those guys on the poster. I don't think I'll ever get it.
Oh, you look smashing. Yeah.
Could you just tell us a bit more about how they built your coming out into the role? Because was it Steve Blackman, the showrunner, was just so wonderful in how it all came about?
He really, really was. And Steve was really one of the first people I came out to, because I had to call him and say, hey, you probably won't be surprised that I'm trans, and I'm really hoping I can get surgery and try and get it right before we start that. Sorry, I'm getting so personal. I'm like, why am I saying this? But, and it was last minute, like there wasn't much time before we were shooting. And so then Thomas Page McBee came on board, who we were just talking about, and we all sort of collaborated together about how to do it. And luckily, Steve really listened, and yeah, we tried to handle it in a way that's like, it's not emotional, it's not a moment, but it's also like, oh yeah, okay, let's, it doesn't have to be this sort of big drama or a whole season arc of like victors and torment. And, it was nice to just,
Trans and non-binary people breathe a huge sigh of relief everywhere.
Yeah.
But yes, fantastic show. And people are going to be so sad that it's over. But yeah, I think it's hopefully maybe there'll be some kind of reunion or whatever. You can keep people on tenterhooks about a future thing with it, because I know there's super fans of it. But we're going to segue neatly into talking about, we've got an image here of the Time magazine cover. I had to ask you about this incredible moment. Round of applause for the Time magazine cover.
Mo! Mo's butt. Yeah, that's my dog.
We learn a lot about in your book. Yeah. But yeah, such a big moment for you. Can you, just tell us a bit about this moment?
Yeah, I mean, the moment of actually doing the shoot was really lovely and quiet and intimate. It was a pretty intense pandemic isolation period in Toronto, and I wanted a trans mask photographer. Time magazine was cool about it, and then found I don't know if you're familiar with his work, Win Niley, fantastic photographer. And so it was me and him and one other person, and in a studio in Toronto, and it just was very lovely. It coming out was a bit overwhelming, I'm not gonna lie, That whole period of my life was definitely a lot, a mixture of feeling the best ever, the most present ever, all of those things. And also, of course, there were moments that were overwhelming.
I wanted to talk about, we're going to move on to talking about the book, which, if people haven't read it yet, another cover shoot I wanted to ask you about. This is by Catherine Opie, the great Kathy Opie. Yeah. What was that day like? I'm a huge fan of
Me too.
Yeah.
Huge fan. So I think I was hanging out with my editor in the United States and mentioned, like, sheepishly, because you're also like, I don't know, she's so iconic that, and thankfully she said yes. And I had such a fantastic experience with her. I was at her studio in Los Angeles and shoots in this very intimate way. I can find photo shoots kind of awkward when they're more like classic photo shoots with the dance music playing, and that makes me kind of go like, just please tell me what to do. Versus when a photographer, and it probably varies for each person, is more, it's almost like there's an emotion to it, and so maybe it's sort of more similar to acting, and that's the way I found that she sort of approached her work, and very intimate and quiet, and just so honored, and that she said yes.
I saw her do an artist talk at the Royal Academy last year, and every single line she said could have opened a book, a quote in somebody's queer history book or whatever. Every single thing that she said was just gold, and she's a teacher as well. So just imparting so much wisdom.
And if you're not familiar with Catherine Opie's work, really you should look it up. And there's such a wide range. Of course, her portraits from, the late 80s, 90s, and but also ice fishing landscapes and, all kinds of extraordinary work.
And in the book, you say that you, when you were younger, you kind of idolized River Phoenix in a white T-shirt, and that's what you wanted to look like. I think you've certainly given him a run for his money. And that you begin it with a lyric from Beverly Glynn Copeland. I wondered if you wanted to read it.
Oh, sure.
Because I hope in 2020 we had a film, Keyboard Fantasies, which was Beverly's film about this fantastic transmasculine
Beautiful
musician
film.
And poet, and so I wanted to know the significance of this person for you.
Sure. Yeah, I loved Keyboard Fantasies. This is a lyric from Beverly Glenn Copeland's song, A Song in Many Moons. This world has many ends and beginnings. A cycle ends, will something remain? Maybe a spark, once so bright, will bloom again. Every time. Beautiful.
Got to meet them and hang out with him.
Yes, we did. Well, not in person, but we connected on Zoom, and so I'm looking forward to, the opportunity to meet him in person.
it was our pandemic year, so I think he was supposed to come, and then we couldn't.
That's
Yeah,
too
it was very.
And their new album is so good. So if you're not familiar with Beverly Glenn Copeland's music, you must check it out. And Keyboard Fantasies, I'd assume, is available online.
I think it is. Yeah, I think you can stream it. So yeah, fantastic. So I picked out a couple of quotes from the book that I thought would just be sort of, talking points or, things that resonate, which was, you say coming out as queer was a wholly different experience from coming out as trans, and who I evolved as I freed myself from the expectations of others, which I think is that last bit is so key. If you could, talk about that liberation.
Sure. Yeah. Or like the difference, is that what is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on some level, like coming out in 2014 as queer was, a massive step forward to getting closer to who I really am. Like that lifted so much weight off my shoulders. I was very closeted. I didn't go on an out date or hold someone's hand outside till I was like 27 years old. Like I was very closeted. And that felt, both sort of felt like if I don't do this, something really bad's gonna happen. Like I'm not okay. And something about the experience of coming out as trans and finally ridding myself of my own internalized transphobia and accepting my identity and really choosing to live my life. There was just, I don't know if the word's clarity, but there was like a depth of understanding that I got to, whereas coming out of queer, massively changed and improved my life, laid the groundwork for the next step. But it was a little bit different. It was more just like, oh God, I just have to come out because I can't live this way anymore. And that was true. And coming out as trans was just, it was different. There was just something more about a deep, deep knowing that I was finally able to say, okay, I'm really listening. And
doing it on your own terms. It was that kind of, the feeling of the power of, shedding the expectations of other people. And then I suppose, having your own production company and then now getting to choose what is made, and you're not so, you're in a different position than you were vis-a-vis having to deal with Hollywood and that kind of end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're first starting out and like thrust into that world, it's like, I don't know, I grew up in Nova Scotia, working in Canada. So you're just kind of listening to what people are saying to you, following their advice, being directed by their narratives and their expectations. And I think, you go through certain things and learn like, why the heck am I listening to you? You're actually wrong. And I'm gonna live my life. And so I think, like with age and experience too, you're more able to just feel more assured, I suppose, and self-embodied in an industry that doesn't necessarily want you to be those things if you don't fit a certain type.
Mold. Because the three words that you use to describe Hollywood, I think, were particularly, I wonder how long it took you to boil it down to these particular three words so succinctly, but that it's plastic, empty, and homophobic as a place, as an industry kind of thing. Is that, because I suppose this is only last year, isn't it? This is how you feel now. Although there has been change, it's still glacially slow in terms of...
Of course. Yeah. And obviously, there's great people in Hollywood, right? It's more as we were talking about earlier, it's a system, and it's pretty toxic. And those were, a lot of my experiences. And I think it actually makes a lot of people really unhappy, how everything's sort of operating in that space. Like, I find it so funny, our societal obsession with fame. And what is every story told about fame, biopic or fictional or what have you, how does it end? It does not end well. People who I know have gone through that or gone through that shift. It's the emotional and true lived experience is, I think, not how, what's the term, or what people like think they're yearning for.
Mm-hmm.
So we like create this thing that does feel false to me. I'm sure some people love being celebrities and like that's their thing and like all the power to you.
Mm.
But I think for the most part, fame really sort of like, I've noticed, doesn't do great things to people. And I think that's what we see in all the narratives we tell. So it's so funny to me that we have this sort of obsession with it.
Yeah, and there was something where you say acting should be the disintegration of ego and not the stroking of one, and that's what ends careers. So you're real zingers. You're a fantastic writer.
Oh.
I was just saying. But yeah, this sort of the struggle with stardom, and that it must be quite difficult to keep your feet on the ground in the chaos of that kind of industry.
I feel so lucky that so young stuff happened. Like, it was a really good thing to learn I just turned 21. Whoa, some of the most miserable I've ever felt is when I'm like nominated for an Oscar. And you certainly don't feel like you can tell people you feel miserable, because what an asshole, shut up. And I wouldn't blame you. So, but to learn that was so liberating. Like, what ends up mattering is the work you make and being present on a set. You never know what's gonna happen. You really never know. Or you could have a film that you think's kind of good and critics don't love it and it doesn't whatever. And then you're in a movie that you don't think's so great and it's kind of well. And there's no rhyme or reason.
Chance every time.
And it was nice to learn something like that so young. So it just didn't make me worry about certain things as much.
Yeah, because we were in the Close to You Q&A yesterday. You and Dominic and Hilary had all started out working very young. I suppose, does that help when you're, in a team like that? Because then everybody kind of understands or has that.
Oh, maybe. I think another nice thing starting young, or when I started at 10, was like getting really used to rejection quickly. Like used to, I didn't get that part, and I'm disappointed, but someone else got it, and sometimes you get a part and the other person doesn't get it, and that's life, and here we go. Doesn't mean I think I've cried twice for not getting parts, but that's in 27 years.
Yeah.
So,
that's really
but parts I really, really wanted. I think those are like great, really valuable lessons to have young.
Yeah.
What does success really mean,
And build up your resilience, for so much. But
and make sure you love the work, or you'll burn out.
Yeah, no point
because if you
doing
don't
it.
enjoy that, so much of what surrounds it is not quite as fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we were thinking about, you talk so eloquently about your childhood and things in it, but seeing something that stuck out was about seeing mainly negative depictions of LGBTQ lives, of course, growing up in the 90s, to sort of be part of this long overdue reshaping of the landscape must be sort of doubly cathartic, or very cathartic, in terms of how much you recall how depressing those early examples, homophobic, transphobic examples on TV were when we were growing up.
Yeah. There were some doozies.
Yeah.
And it's complicated because some of the things that were super problematic also were things that helped me, right? Like, we don't need to go into those things, but yeah, what can I say? I hate that I have to say this because it should not be the case, and we should have, lots of trans actors and spotlights. But I feel very lucky, to have gone through what I've gone through and to be here. And am still getting to make things. And I realize just how fortunate I am for that. So I guess I just kind of want to do my best.
Absolutely.
And that's what I plan on. So we'll see, but yeah.
Can you give us any teasers of what you're working on next? What might be, or is it all still in the works? And
I guess it's all still in the works. I feel like I want to look to Matt and Tuck. I'm like, what can I feel like most things are still in the works, but lots of exciting things. Drama I'm going to act in, also a comedy, and then, tons of stuff we're making that I'm not in. But really exciting, thrilling projects. So we'll see which ones Hollywood wants to make.
Watch this space. If you were going to pick out a specifically LGBTQ film of some kind, are there any that jump to the forefront of your mind as having really influenced you or touched you particularly in your life?
Like particularly as a younger person?
Yeah, or now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess as a teenager, for sure, but I'm a cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
And yes. And that was definitely I think even like we had like a free trial of the Movie Network or something in Canada on the TV, and we just like stumbled upon it and was utterly transfixed. And then anytime like I'd see it on TV, I'd watch it, probably in somewhat privacy. I think not like that. That I was probably about 15, maybe. I remember that having a massive impact on me.
Did that help you want to make Backspot? There's a
that's good. Yeah. Very different movies, but yes. Both have a queer cheerleading component to it. Yeah.
And and one other one, if you had another one. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, that's okay. I love Celine Sciamma's Tomboy. Beautiful film.
That's good. I mean, it's a standout one, and one that people keep kind of referring back to. I think, is Tomboy, I think, yeah.
I mean, she's just such an incredible filmmaker. I also love Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Oh, I was weeping. Yeah, so.
And it's not a queer film. It's someone you mentioned in the beginning with Samantha Morton, and Morven Caller, which is one of my favourite films from back in the day. And that this performance had a profound effect on you in terms of what could be done with the physicality of performance that is quite muted and quite quiet.
Yeah, it had a massive impact on me. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, actually, two of my greatest inspirations are both British women, Samantha Morton and Kate Winslet. And yeah, Samantha Morton's performance in that was just jarring, and how quiet and how still it was. And I feel like I almost was like studying it on some level. Like it really did have like a distinct impact. I found it very, very inspiring as an actor. So thank you, Samantha Morton, for your brilliance. Yeah.
Hopefully with the Dominic connection now, maybe you'll get to work together. That'd be a real dream for you.
That would be a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you are trans, you come out, do you feel, even though you always felt masculine, I'm surely there's a great liberation in the way that you have physicality performance now?
Absolutely. And I think it's, that was, and I talk about this in the book a bit, like an understandable reaction from people before, like not knowing what was going on in terms of my discomfort with, clothing, et cetera. Even when playing a part, would be, you're an actor, literally, what is the big deal? And secretly I'd be going, I don't know. Like, I actually don't know why feel this like pit of emptiness, and I just feel this like pain all the time that's like not letting me be fully present. And I feel like, you know, my performances where I at least, or characters where I at least got to start like a little, you know, closer to where I'm, like a film like Juno, or they're better performances. Because I'm not like working through this brutally uncomfortable layer to get there. And I see it. I see a stiffness in some things, and I think now there's just a looseness.
Yeah.
And Close to You is a great example of like that, and working in that way would not have been possible before. No way. And so that was also one of the exhilarating things about feeling that every day, waking up excited to go to set, feeling present, like feet on the ground, and getting to enter the work. Sorry, that always sounds so funny, but from that space, you know? It's so nice.
I wanted to ask you what your dream role would be at this point, which is, again, another kind of big question, but either it could be like to people that you wanted to work with, or a role that you kind of always fancied having a go at.
Right now, I'm pretty kind of stoked I'm pretty open. Like, as a viewer, I'm not necessarily into every single genre. As an actor, absolutely. And like creator, absolutely. Like if something moves me and excites me, makes me laugh, makes me feel like, I find the what's your dream role tricky, because sometimes it's, you know, you discover it when you're reading it on the page. So I'm thrilled to just explore sort of all different kind of varieties and ranges because of how I feel now, you know? So hell yeah, I want to play a villain. Like, hell yeah, I'll do some crazy action shit. Like, you know, comedy, drama. Like, I think I'm just excited to get to explore now that I feel this way. Like in the new season of Umbrella coming out, I can't give anything away, but it was like a couple days of shooting this action thing, and I was like having so much fun. I was like 6 years old in my bedroom again, you know, just like, like really enjoying it, you know? So I'm pretty open right now.
And it must be so, because when you're doing that on the set in front of all the green screen and stuff, I'm sure it's more exciting than when you actually get to see the finished version, because, you know, you're seeing all those effects and everything for the first time, kind of,
Yeah.
with the audience almost.
Yeah, it's always a thrill seeing it come together. And because it's an ensemble, you know, there's lots of it I'm not in. So I'm always like, ooh, that's what everybody was up to, you know? So, yeah.
One person that you talk about, again, very eloquently to sort of close out the book, who we were hoping we would have in the festival this year, but her film wasn't quite ready, was Peaches. Peaches is someone you're a huge fan of and who has had an impact on your life. Can you talk a little bit about... there's a gross out story in there, but you don't have to tell. She pukes fake blood all over you.
So, yeah, it was a crazy, crazy night. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so Peach's music, I guess I first would have been introduced when I was about 16. Fuck the Pain Away was probably the first song I heard, like most people. And if you're not familiar with that song, that might have sounded strange, but you know, it's quite a known song now. And you know, her music, her lyrics, her really made me, I guess, feel liberated. Her going against, you know, whether, you know, expectations in terms of gender, in terms of sexuality, in terms of, I don't know, like, I found it so freeing. You know, I put on the record, like, and just danced to the whole thing. And aggressively, you know, like something was happening there, I think. And she greatly inspired me. Anyway, so I went to a concert when I was 16 and got there very early and was like right up against the stage like this. And yes, at one point she vomited fake blood. It got all over my arm. She grabbed my arm, smeared it like that, and I didn't wash off for like 2 weeks. I was like showering like this. And then later in life, we became friends, and she's such a great person. And yeah, her work has really inspired me and just who she is in the world.
Yeah, amazing trans ally as well. I saw her do a gig in Manchester a couple of weeks ago, and she wore a leotard that said "Trans Rights Now" the whole time. So yeah, yeah, lots of features.
We love you, Peaches.
We have no more clips, but I would urge everybody to purchase this book. And I really do think that you should write more. Is this something that's on the cards for you? Something that you want to do? So can I give everybody a huge round of applause to Elliot Page?